We're going to meet everybody when we do intros in a couple minutes, but for now, I'm just going to share the PowerPoint because I don't have unlimited screen space despite being surrounded by these massive TVs. So welcome to Intro to Generative Artificial Intelligence, Gen AI demonstrations and conversations. I think most of you know me already, but my name is Greg Bem. I'm one of the faculty librarians here at the college. And I will also say that Toby Good is online, and she is also one of the librarians. If you like what you see today and you want to learn more, we're going to be doing next week image literacy Gen AI workshop, and that will be recorded as well. So you're in class, obviously. If you want to watch the recording, that will be put on the website as well. Here's our agenda today. So we're going to be talking about learning outcomes, what I hope for you to take away from this session. We'll be doing introductions. We'll be doing Mentee activity, Gen AI basics, talk about the common tools just to prepare folks in the room to know what is hot, what is popular when you're using Gen AI today for a variety of reasons. We'll go into the concept of prompts and iterations, and then we'll round out with what are the ways we can use it in college, what are the benefits of using Gen AI technology at college, and then recommended best practices, because these are controversial technologies. A lot of people have different opinions on them, and we want you to be informed so that you can make a decision if you choose to use them. The reality is these tools are being used in the workforce today. This is a skill set that is competitive. If you know how to use Gen AI tools, that will put you up a rung or two when it comes to competing for work positions in different office and work environments. So keep that in mind, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether it's easy or not to use these for you, they are becoming more and more centered in, at least in the United States. Does this all sound good so far? All right, thank you. And please raise your hand at any point, ask questions online. If you want to throw your questions or comments in the chat, I see you on my this fourth screen. I've got 5 screens around me here today. Let's see if I can manage all this. Yes, yes. So here are those learning outcomes. I want to provide basic information on generative artificial intelligence technology, highlight basic tools, functionality, and trends, share higher ed and professional contexts, identify potential problems and benefits of the technology with ethical considerations. So what does it mean to be ethical? We'll go into that. That's a vocabulary term for you today. And finally, close out with recommended practices for using Gen AI at the college. If you registered online for this workshop, or you are in this class, or you are in Carrie's BT class, a copy of these slides will be shared out with you. You're welcome to take photos or whatever if you want, take notes, follow along on your device, but these will be shared out after the fact. Okay, so let's go into some intros here. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll start it again after the intros are done. Again, online, if you want to use the chat, you can. And folks, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. We're going to jump into a quick Mentee activity. Some of you may have done this with me before, a similar activity. So what I want you to do is, with your phones, scan the QR code. If you do not have a phone, but you have a laptop and you want to participate that way, I will give you the code when you get to Mentee, MENTI.com. Okay, so actually, I think this code is old. So if you don't mind not using that code, I just realized that that code needs to be updated. So instead, I will put a new code up on the screen when I present here. My apologies, folks, this shouldn't take too long. The cool thing about Mentee, if you all end up doing presentations in your future, is that it does have a QR code built in. So here's the QR code I would like you to scan. And if you don't want to scan 3360, all right. And yeah, once you're in, if you can just start out with that first question, we've got a few questions today. And just to gauge the kind of experience in the room, some of you already shared your experience, but we're essentially going to ask first, what's your experience with Gen AI tools? And I've never heard of them. I've never used them. I've tried them once or twice. Seems like the majority of folks have done that. I use them when I need to every so often. I use them nearly every day, using them right now. But he's using them right now. Interesting. Okay. That's probably good. That means you're focused on the human in the room. Next question. If you've used a Gen AI tool, what is its name? If you don't know, that is perfectly okay. If you don't remember the tool's name, perfectly okay. DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Grammarly, great. Reminds me, I need to do a Grammarly workshop soon. Gemini. Oh, there's one for ChatGPT. I'll give it one more second here. Elicit, nice. Curious who used that one. All right. Cool, thank you all. Looks like ChatGPT is the winner. Deep AI. I don't know Deep AI. I need to look that one up. Make it go. All right, and next question. If you have heard of Gen AI tools but haven't tried them yet, what is the main reason? So I think most of you have actually used them, but if this applies to you, or maybe you don't, maybe you can answer it this way. If you don't use them often, what is the main reason? Yes, there could be other options for that too. All right, don't know enough about it. And ethics, abuse, these types of words were used earlier in the introductions. What is one ethical issue connected to Gen AI? If you don't know, that is fine. But I think a couple of you, at least a couple of you do know. So let's see what some things that come up. Stolen content, yes. Intellectual property issues. Environmental impact, yes, definitely. Hacking, interesting. Curious about that. Also curious about TT. Curious. People aren't forced to think for themselves. That is a fantastic point. Underage users, interesting. Scammers, art theft, cheating, fake news, lack of citations. It's a good one to mention in the college environment here. Misleading content, bad info taken from the internet, hallucinations and answers. Wow, you all know quite a bit already. This is great. We're going to go into some of these things today. And what's one word you would use to describe about how you feel about Gen AI or artificial intelligence today? Could be any word. Could be your favorite word. Anxious. Yes.
I think because I grew up in the generation where computers were just being introduced, I'm a little bit hesitant in trusting all this artificial intelligence.
I don't think you're alone. I think there are a lot of people that are in the same boat. I, on occasion, am in the same boat.
My high school.
Sure. I was in grade school when PCs became popular, so I have similar feelings. There are a lot of great words on the screen. Iffy, I love iffy. That's a great word. Promising, acceleration, uncertain, worried, confused, hopeful, skeptical, uneasy. I think that maybe you should say it, or
Yeah.
new, useful, anxious, unsure, nervous, overwhelmed. I just want to comment that y'all are great, unique butterflies today because nobody chose the same word. That never happens. That's fantastic. I love to see that. Okay. We'll be back. You can set your phone or device or browser tab aside. We're going to go back to the presentation here, but I deeply appreciate your participation in that activity. Always a fun time. And let's move on to some of the lecture here. So let's talk about Gen AI. Some of you have, or let's talk about AI. Some of you already have some experience. Feel free to chime in if there's any perspective you want to add. But essentially, artificial intelligence, which is broader than Gen AI, generative artificial intelligence, is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. So it's behaving or simulating what it is to be human. All of these behavioral things and the ways that we do actions and make decisions and create things. That is the gist of artificial intelligence. AI is also something that is beyond just the technology itself. We can think of AI as a field of study or inquiry in what it means to be human. AI, according to Google, is also a broad field that encompasses many different disciplines. So if any of these or probably beyond end up being in your future, or maybe you want to study them, maybe you feel inspired by AI as an issue or as a phenomenon, you can go into computer science, data analytics, statistics, hardware and software engineering and development, linguistics, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, and now, as we're seeing with Gen AI, so many other disciplines are impacted by this technology as well, including supply chain management, accounting, education. Pretty much the entire world is going towards this field of study. Yes, did you have a question or comment?
What is Gen AI?
We're about to get there. About to make that bridge. We're starting broad and we're getting narrow. Good question. Here's my next slide. So IBM, big technology company, historic technology company. This is their definition. You can also find a bunch of other definitions as well, some easier, some more sophisticated. But essentially what it is referring to is a specific type of deep learning model. So that's the system, the technology system that is used to generate high quality text, images, and other content based on data the model is trained on. So I'm going to do an illustration. I don't usually do this, but I was thinking about doing it earlier today because I think it really helps illustrate how this all works. And we're going to see some of this in action. Okay, so we've got an article about a dog. We've got a book about dogs. And we've got a poem about dogs. And we've got images, an image about dogs. Okay, these are all kinds of information resources that exist in the world, right? The way that this system works, very simplistically, is that it has all of these information resources in its database. It says, this is talking about dogs, this is talking about dogs, this is talking about dogs, this is talking about dogs. All of these things go into what is a dog. And so if you imagine how many resources are out there in the world that talk about dogs, trillions, right? Trillions of information objects that exist out there. Every Reddit post, every Facebook post, every YouTube video, every book, every magazine that's about a dog, if that's all gobbled up by this system, and the system is told this is how we know dogs, that's how it works. It gets trained on it, learns, technologically speaking, what a dog is by all these examples that feeds into that central way of knowing through the deep learning model. And so you can Google or watch videos about how that actually works, like the code, if you are really interested. But that's the basis of what generative artificial intelligence is doing. It's not just doing it about dogs. It's doing it about how to be an accountant. It's doing it about what are the best practices in graphic design. It's doing it about literally everything that exists because it's pulling from human knowledge that's been recorded about every single topic.
So my question is then, if it's pulling from just anything that it can find that way, how does it tell the difference between, say, a fictional dog, somebody Rex that has 6 legs, and a real dog, that's 4-legged? How does it know the difference?
That is a great question, and there's a lot of nuances to that. We might cover that later, but I would actually ask you to research that because I don't have the technological background to explain how it does that. But it essentially does have precision about every type of variability, and then it's also got a human touch, the algorithms and the humans that are on the back end checking for how these tools are working. They're able to refine that and clarify and provide certain parameters that will say, no, six legs is not a dog, unless there was a famous dog with 6 legs or something that could feed into the data set. So we're very specific and very narrow. We're very limited in what generative artificial intelligence is doing in the grand scope of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has a variety of categories or a variety of types that we can use to define it. And if we start off with the most simplistic version of artificial intelligence, one of the models says that it's ANI is the most specific, which is called artificial narrow intelligence. And these models focus on very specific tasks and do not have the capacity to learn. So when ChatGPT first came out, you could ask it, what is a dog? And it would look at its backing data set and be able to provide an answer, but it wouldn't learn from that. At least that was what we initially thought. Now, there's more technology that's allowing various tools to evolve out of the conversations that are being held within them, and it's getting a little bit more complex. 1 second. Then we move into slightly broader artificial general intelligence. General intelligence models are able to learn and mimic basic human thinking. And so right now we're kind of in this area. You can Google AI agents if this is interesting to you, where we're thinking about how Gen AI is maybe soon going to be able to essentially replicate the complex tasks that humans are able to do. Just a couple days ago, for example, Duolingo announced they're removing all of their human employees and replacing them with AI agents, which I think is wild. And then artificial superintelligence is the sci-fi kind of version of AI. This theoretical model aspires to surpass the capacity of human beings in using and synthesizing vast quantities of data and knowledge. So basically, we don't know what it would do because it's so powerful, so big, that it surpasses what humanity is. So that's super heady sci-fi kind of version of AI. Did you have a comment or question in the back?
Yeah.
Like, how could we like fight that, or like how are we better than AI? Because
Right?
all this seems pretty, but like besides our intuition.
Yeah, well, we are in a tangible world. That is one difference that we know of, unless we're living in a simulation. We are in the physical world and we have our bodies and we have the systems within our body that produce emotion. I think that is a key component of it. Another key component of it is self-awareness. There are skeptics that think that this can lead to self-awareness. And these complex systems being able to essentially think and act autonomously. But at the same time, that ends up becoming a philosophical question. Are they their own being or are they not their own being? And you can watch shows like Black Mirror and other sci-fi shows that kind of look at the boundaries of that. But it's a deeply personal question too, like what makes you human? And that's kind of beyond the scope of this presentation, but I deeply appreciate that question. Did you have another comment?
Yeah, good thing or bad thing, AI.
Well, we're gonna get to that in a minute here. Yeah, let's jump into that. Here's another, I'm not gonna go into all of this because we gotta keep moving here, but here's another one you can look at in the slides when you get them. But you can see Gen AI is a smaller component of these larger spheres of AI. As we move from just being able to generate a picture of a dog to being able to solve global conflicts and scale healthcare and manage climate change with complex systems. That's the way that this particular model looks at AI moving. If you want to look at some popular film examples of AI, or maybe you already know these movies, traditional AI shows up a lot in Minority Report. It's kind of that static, not very interesting AI that just helps make the world work a little bit easier, helps make people do their tasks a little bit easier. AGI shows up in the movies WALL-E and 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then artificial superintelligence, Her or Ex Machina are examples where the AI in the end essentially leaves humanity because it's beyond, it doesn't need humanity to exist. It considers humanity lesser than itself. Yep, they're all good movies if you haven't seen them. So Gen AI qualities, Gen AI runs on large language models. That's a specific type of deep learning model. Again, we're not going to cover all of the exact technological details about how that works, but you can Google or YouTube videos on scientists and software engineers explaining it if you want to see all of those details. And essentially, like I described on the whiteboard, it's looking at patterns in language, patterns in concepts in order to quote unquote understand and provide the information in response. So an LLM example is GPT. GPT doesn't mean nothing. It actually stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is the name of the LLM. That is their product. So now you know when you say ChatGPT, you're referring to the LLM itself. There's also these new models. We'll probably do a workshop on these soon called reasoning models. No time to really go into those very deeply today, but if you use DeepSeek's DeepThink R1, that is an example of a reasoning model. And as I mentioned, these tools are trained on all types of data, from social media posts to books, to video transcripts, to podcasts, sucking it all up, and it's informing those tools on how to work. For Gen AI, and except when it comes to the agents, as I mentioned, I'll write that on the board if you do want to Google it, AI agents. Except when we're talking about agents, most of these tools do require user input to work, meaning you have to enter something in to get something back. They are not the type of AI that's in the surveillance systems we're using or some of the shipping services we're using. These are, you're on a device entering something into a bar and then you're getting a response back. These tools have been developed by for-profit companies, organizations, and individuals like you are working on these. Some of these tools are open source, meaning anyone can develop them and edit or modify the tools that exist out there. If you want to get into AI development, you can. You don't need a special degree. You can basically learn it all for free online, and that's kind of because it's kind of the Wild West. It's been really emerging in the last couple of years. That's how a lot of people are developing AI. They're just out there experimenting in their free time if they're not working for a huge tech company. A lot of these platforms do have free versions, but they're also offering paid versions. They're available on your mobile device, on your computer. A lot of them require an internet connection, but some are available offline. And then the idea that they're already being used came up, like someone mentioned earlier, that They might already be using them and they don't know. So if you use Windows or Adobe, which most of us do, they already have AI built into these in different ways. So they're kind of taking, this technology is taking over and being embedded in the other technology we already know how to use. So if you want on your own down the road to explore and get some experience, I always recommend practicing, even if you don't like these, just to know how they work and know what they are. Practicing using them on occasion can be really useful. So here are a handful that are quite popular today. I follow a lot of subreddits on AI, and these ones always show up. ChatGPT, have you all heard of that one? Probably most of you. Microsoft has one called Copilot, which is built in to Windows 11. There's Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, which came out this year. Yeah, so I recommend taking a look at these. A couple others that are not on this list that I recommend to students, especially, is Perplexity. And it was mentioned in the activity elicit. Both of these are research-oriented or search-oriented tools that could potentially help you when you're doing research. So, but what is Gen AI? What is it actually generating? Gen AI often is providing plain text responses to your prompts, formatted text, still images, animated images, video, and even music. So again, it's generating content, and we'll see that when I do the brief demonstrations. And it's using what's called prompts and iterations. So these tools are similar to search engines where you do have a prompt bar. So rather than searching like you would in Google, you're entering a prompt. And these are just the words that you're typing in when you're asking the Gen AI tool to provide you something in response. We call it prompting, not searching. And you can use your own language. So unlike using the library system where you really need to identify which keywords you want to search for to find resources, Gen AI is really designed to mimic what we call natural language, how you individually talk. And that could be proper grammar, that could be slang. If you're learning English and you don't know all of the English rules, it still is designed to understand what you're trying to ask, which is one of the most powerful qualities, I think, of how these tools work. Prompts are iterative and conversational. So again, unlike a search engine, when you prompt Gen AI, you are having a conversation with multiple inputs. Google, you have to Google you have to Google. You have to search multiple times. Each time you search, it's a new search. It's the exact opposite with Gen AI tools, with most Gen AI tools. I know some folks in here are interested in the work context. You can look up prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is a skill set that's showing up on a lot of job postings now, where you are going to be expected to know how to use these Gen AI tools efficiently. And there's all kinds of classes and trainings you can take on how to do prompt engineering. We're going to do the demonstration in a second, but I just want to give you a few examples of prompts you can use. Why do so many people like poetry? You could ask a Gen AI tool that question. Describe quantum mechanics to a 10-year-old. How do I make gluten-free pizza that tastes delicious? Can we talk about life, the universe, and everything? Which is a reference to the Douglas Adams book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What can I do to get over test anxiety for my college course? Where should I look for information about the latest research in nursing? Or maybe medical billing and coding? Please provide some feedback on my current resume. Or put all the dates from this month into a spreadsheet and include empty fields for tasks and the required team member. Yes, Gen AI is now able to do tasks, office tasks, clerical office tasks. So if you were an admin, you could have these tools automate a lot of the work that you're doing. Okay. And I don't think that there's anything in the chat. Is there anything in the chat, folks? Let's see. Okay, I've heard that current AI learning algorithms are suffering from self-cannibalization, using generated data to create more generated data. Yes, and we talked about that in the workshop, The Internet is Dead, last quarter, or Is the Internet Dead? So if you want to learn or explore that a little bit more, check out that recording. Okay. How many of you, we only have time for one demo today, so how many of you want to see ChatGPT? How many of you want to see Copilot? And how many of you want to see DeepSeek? Okay, I see most hands for DeepSeek, so we're going to do that one today. And then you're all, again, welcome to practice on your own. There it is. Okay. Let me get this. So you can go to deepseek.com. I'll just mention really briefly that DeepSeek came out this year. It's very, very popular. One of the reasons it's popular is because it is completely free. It's open source. There's no paid version. So you don't have to worry about that. You do create a free account and then you can start using it. It is open source and developed by a group in China. So this is also very interesting because DeepSeek is the first non-US based Gen AI tool to come out and be popular so far. So I think that's kind of interesting. You will also notice if you use ChatGPT that the interface looks almost identical to ChatGPT, and a lot of people actually find that very interesting and or controversial. There are a couple other things I want to mention. The prompt bars in the middle, you can toggle a search button, and I mention this for students especially because if you're doing research or you're using this to find information or generate information about a topic, having that search button turned on will look beyond just the data set that the tool is trained on. It will look at the live internet, so you can get sources for all of your responses. So yeah, what do you want to know? What should I use as a prompt? I want to have a
Janitorial.
janitorial what? What do you want to know about it?
Service.
Just general information?
Yeah.
Tell me about commercial janitorial services?
Yeah.
There we go. I'm not turning on the R1. I mentioned R1 earlier because it takes a long time. That is another feature about DeepSeek that is very popular, very noteworthy. It's a reasoning model. So again, if you want to learn more about that, we might cover it in a workshop in the future, but for now. So for those of you that have never seen Gen AI before, one of the things to note is that it's very fast. I think it's fast still, even though it's been doing this for years. It's no longer as magical to me, but it is fast. What it does with DeepSeek is it finds the results, it does a search, and it looks on the internet, and it connects you to all of these different websites, which can get you more information if you want to explore more information. How does it find the websites? I do not know. I'm sure you could probably find out more information about how the search system works. But it does go on the internet, it searches a variety of websites, and then it provides basic information. So we didn't really have a very specific question. We just want to know generally about commercial janitorial services. So it provides that examples and what that means, and then it goes into a deeper dive. And as I mentioned, Gen AI tools provide formatted text. And then if you scroll down, you will see that it's also structured in a way that's relatively easy to get that information and read that information. In the case of DeepSeek, you can also see that there are all of these in-text citations. And I also want to mention that, you know, a lot of these seem to be .com websites that it's citing. So I don't know anything, I haven't searched for commercial janitorial services before, but in this case, it looks like the majority of the websites it's using are private businesses that are talking about commercial janitorial services. So you could also ask it for maybe something like, what is the history? And again, this is iterative, meaning you can add more to the conversation. And it's doing a new search. I don't need to say what is the history of commercial janitorial services because it knows that I'm in the same conversation. And now it's providing the history of commercial janitorial and cleaning services. Pre-20th century, birth of commercial cleaning, expansion and professionalization, technological environmental advances, goes into green cleaning, technology integration, COVID-19 pivot, key milestones in labor rights, and modern landscape. You can go into any of these and read more about them by looking at those sources it's citing. You can continue asking more questions, make more prompts, and continue that journey in that conversation if you want to. Yes.
So could you narrow it down in a second prompt saying use only like .edu sites, or is that?
Yeah, let's see. I'm just going to put it in your words. And online, I'm seeing, okay. Thanks, Eric. So since you're looking for academic or university-based sources on the history of commercial janitorial services, I'll provide an overview based on research from educational institutions, labor study programs, and historical archives. And then it's providing a link to University of California's Berkeley's Labor Center, Harvard Business School, and so on and so forth. Yep, Eric says not seen one of these AI generators provide the related websites before. Again, check out Perplexity as well. That one provides sources for every answer or prompt you put in. Okay, given that we only have about 5 minutes, how time flies, we're going to go quickly through more of the ethical considerations, and then we'll go into best practices. Some of you already mentioned this, but some of these tools provide incorrect information. So always check the information, double check, because it's important to not assume it's correct. You can look up the concept of hallucinations, which refer to fictional sources or fictional information that is backed by fictional sources. Before having that search button in ChatGPT hallucinated a lot, but now that it's connected to the internet, it's a lot more stable when it comes to hallucinations. By default, a lot of the tools do not provide citations. So keep that in mind. In some cases, you actually have to ask for those citations. There are issues around who is creating these tools, who has control over them. For me as a librarian, this is a major category of information for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And we need to know who is developing these and what is their end goal. There are barriers to access. Some of you are not good at using computers, not necessarily you in the room, but some people are not. So what does that mean? If they end up starting to cost money the same way other tools like Adobe Photoshop costs money, Microsoft Office costs money. What does that mean if not everybody has equal access to it? Developer safeguards. We use DeepSeek. I'm going to use a very popular example of Tiananmen Square massacre. DeepSeek is a Chinese company. If you ask it about the history of the Tiananmen Square massacre, it will say it will not provide and it will not talk about it. It cannot talk about it. Controversial figures, controversial subject matter, those types of things have come up historically, even with the US-based products, as being off limits. And so what does that mean for us doing research about these topics if we want to use these tools to get information about them? Bias in data sets and design. We talk a lot about that in the ethics workshop if you want to learn more. But just like there is bias within all of us in different ways, there is also systemic bias that shows up in the publishing world and in the recorded human knowledge. All of the isms, sexism, racism, gender oppression, religious oppression, all of that stuff is going to show up in recorded history, right? So that will end up showing up in these tools as well. So keep that in mind. Should these tools provide an opinion on the information they're providing? Even if they don't provide an opinion, how do they skew? How does information skew based on bias? Violations in intellectual property, somebody mentioned that earlier. Yes, these tools have very unfortunately scraped the internet and taken a lot of art and a lot of music and a lot of creative works, poems, stories, novels, in order to train the data set. And so, or be part of the data set in order to train the models. And so there have been violations of intellectual property and things that are happening so fast that the government hasn't really been able to significantly respond to that at this time. There's also privacy issues. When you use these tools, do not put in your social security number, do not put in your credit card number, do not put in your address. We do not know how these companies are using these tools and the information that the users are putting in. And they also are not 100% secure. So we've seen that with ChatGPT being hacked before. I don't want you to be taken advantage of. I'm going to, because we're at time. Again, you can look at these slides on your own. For those folks in the room that are students, here are my recommendations to you before you get out of here. First, look at the syllabus and assignment language in every class that you're in. Different professors have different opinions on Gen AI. Always just start with the syllabus and assignment. And if it's not there, ask your professor directly what they expect when it comes to Gen AI. Communicate with your professor about those expectations. Be aware of differing opinions on Gen AI across the college. Some professors love it, some hate it, some are in between. I would say most of us are exploring, we're trying to figure it out. So giving each other, giving all of us grace when it comes to having these conversations is big as well. Include statements of use and citations. If you do end up using any of these tools, just throw in a comment saying you used it to help edit your paper or you found some initial sources using it. The more that you are transparent about your use, the better position you'll be in. And I like to say that for not just being a student, but any time you're using these tools, being direct about how you're using them is important. And as with any technology, acknowledge over-reliance. And I have to say this to myself all the time as well. Some of you may, for example, try out Perplexity and find that it's really amazing, like me. And I use it more than I use Google now. I use it for literally every search. It's my main icon on my phone for getting information. And I need to remember that there are other places to go, right? We don't only go to Facebook to read the news. We don't only go to Instagram to watch funny videos. We don't only go to TikTok to learn how to do dances, right? Like there are a lot of diverse information sources out there in the world. And so recognize that Gen AI tools that are emerging, becoming popular, are not the be all end all of who we are and what we're doing and how we're doing our student work, how we're doing our professional work. It's important to stay up to date with news and trends around Gen AI, especially as some new tools are emerging. Again, AI agents and what I said about Duolingo earlier in this presentation, that I would recommend as a student, doing, just so you're aware of how your future profession may be impacted by this technology, because it is impacting almost every profession in existence today. With that said, a reminder, I will be sending out the slides as well as the recording. And then I will also send you a link to the LibGuide that's on our library website so you can learn more. We have tons of great resources for you on there. Does anyone have any final questions before we break? Anybody online? All right, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day. All right, thank you. Thanks online, everyone. We'll see you soon.